Hello and welcome back to another episode of Armchair Talks. Now my name is Darren Birch. If you want to, please leave a comment in the comments box below and give us a like if you like this program. Now, or please subscribe to us. You've got lots of choices, haven't you? Now the story I'm about to tell you today is a true story. It's about an incident that happened here in Istanbul back in 1999 on the 17th of August. It was a terrifying time for everybody. Now, Berna has a sixth feeling. She had a dream about this earthquake about to happen, and she felt it. She felt very uncomfortable, and for days, almost a month, she could feel it, and she felt so uncomfortable and hot, and she couldn't sleep. They went away on holiday, but she couldn't relax. She knew that something was going to happen. Now, her family went to the summer house to spend some time away. So Berna was left alone to stay in the apartment, the family apartment, on the 7th floor. Now, during the day when she went to work, she was working at the bank. Again, she felt uncomfortable. She didn't want to go home. So after work, she went to Migros, and she spent most of her time there, just wasting time. So eventually she had to go back home. But when she got home, she rang her friend, and she asked her friend, could you please come and spend some time with me, because I don't want to be left alone here, and I'm actually very scared. But unfortunately her friend couldn't stay with her because she was looking after her elderly mother. So that night she was trying to sleep, but she could not sleep. She knew something dreadful was going to happen. And by 1 o'clock, by 2 o'clock, she was tossing and turning, she was hot, and by 2:30 she was laying like this, and then suddenly she looked up and the whole wall came forward like this, and then she suddenly heard these screams like this, ah, from the ground coming up. These massive screams. It was so terrifying. She said she'd never heard anything so terrifying before. Screams from hell coming up from the earth, coming up, of hundreds of people screaming. The walls were going like this, and she jumped out of her bed and she grabbed the phone and she ran under the archway of the door, and she screamed at her mum saying, "Mum, we're going to die here, we're going to die." And suddenly the phone got cut off and the power got cut off and there was no light. And she could see the walls moving, and all the walls started to crack. And people were running downstairs, down to the courtyard, and the elevator had fallen to the ground floor. And she was stuck in the apartment. She was too frightened to move. And when everyone was out in the courtyard, they were all doing their count, wondering where Berna was. And she slowly worked her way downstairs, and they saw her. Everyone was pretty shaken, they're all shaking. She slept the night in the car, and during the day she went back to work. Her boss did a count to make sure that everyone was counted for, but no one could work, so she drove herself back to the summer house, and for a whole week the whole family spent the whole week together in the summer house. But when they returned back to the apartment, the walls had cracks like this wide. It was like a war zone, and Berna said, "No way, Dad, we can move back here." So for 4 days they slept in their car, because they didn't want to move back in the apartment because they were scared of the earthquake. But they eventually found a place to live over in Janku, and this is where I'm staying now, right here. It was a massive earthquake. Over 17,000 people, 1,700 more, I've been told. Probably 30,000, because a lot of people weren't counted for. But they counted 17,500 people had lost their lives in this earthquake. It's something that I would never want to experience myself. Now, I've noticed a couple of earthquakes here myself, 2 small ones. The last one we had in Istanbul was just outside, and I think a mosque temple had fallen, and a few other things had fallen, but there was no one injured. I think one person had lost their life. But 6 months ago, I noticed my light was moving from side to side, and all the walls were moving, they were going like this. And I bolted. I just ran out that door and went straight down onto the street and got as far as I could away from the building. And then I realized I wasn't wearing any shoes. I was in my socks, and my cell phone and my keys were still in the flat, and the door was closed. So, but I'd rather be out on the street in my socks than being squashed or trapped in a building. So I was a bit shaken. I couldn't imagine what people would have felt like here back in 1999, where their tremor went on for about 2 or 3 minutes, or longer. Even after the tremor, they had aftershocks, and so it went on for a long time. Yeah, so I ended up walking down to Music and ringing my wife Berna after that. Now, back in my own country, New Zealand, we have earthquakes every day, all around the New Zealand perimeter of it. There's always earthquakes, one happening every day, and so is Istanbul, minor ones and smaller ones. But the worst one of all was the one in Christchurch we had years back. Now, I think it was number 7. We have liquefaction, where the ground shakes like this, and all the mud comes up and fills your house up with mud and soot, because all the buildings are built on soot and mud. So you have all this liquid comes up, and you have to shovel it out your door. But a month after that, they had a number, I think a 4 category, but it was very low, or very close to the surface, about a mile. wasn't that far, but it was enough to shake a lot of the commercial buildings down. And it was during the day while people were at work, and so over 270 people lost their lives in Christchurch. And it was very sad. A lot of buildings and a lot of area, and they had to demolish a lot of the buildings. So when I was there last time, like the cathedral or a lot of the commercial buildings, shopping centres, they're all gone. You've got these big, all the block areas are all being levelled off, and a lot of red zones now where you cannot live. And during that time, a lot of the places where people were living, well, they had nowhere else to live, and so they had to live in these houses for a year or 2 with no power or no water, because there's no way you can get power and water to it. And the horrible thing about it is, normally an earthquake you have one earthquake and then you have an aftershock. Well, in Christchurch, you have them every day, 4 or 5 a day, and so you're traumatized. You think, oh, what's going to happen? So you can't plan anything. You can't plan for the future because you don't know what's going to happen. So so it's very disturbing. You'll be in a building, the whole thing's shaking. You don't know what's going to happen. It's very sad. So all these houses are called red zones. So all the streets are being blocked off, so you can't live there anymore. But they're rebuilding it, putting new buildings up. We had another earthquake in Napier. Is it Napier? No, Gisborne. It was back in the 1930s. It was a big earthquake, and people lost their lives. And they rebuilt the whole city in the Art Deco era. So Gisborne's, all the buildings there are all built in Art Deco style. So it's the biggest Art Deco capital in the world. A lot of Art Deco buildings there. But it's very scary indeed. So something I wouldn't want to live through myself. I don't like earthquakes at all. That's the true story that Berna had to tell me, so I can tell you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys again later, next week, and try to have a lovely weekend. Sorry for scaring you. If you do happen to run out your door because of an earthquake, make sure you leave some shoes outside your door in case you have to come back, and leave your cell phone and your wallet or your keys in your pocket always, just in case. Right? Thank you. See you later. It's a very, very sad time for everyone. Over 200, maybe 300,000 people were homeless, living in tents, living in parks. It was just one of the worst things I've ever seen. And it happened right here in Istanbul, where I'm living right now. So let's pray that it never happens again. anywhere in the world.